Welcome back to another live episode of the Relevant Recruiter Show. As we get this thing dialed in and people start joining us today, I'm joined by my magnificent partner, Alexis. Thanks for
Hello.
joining. Today, we're going to dig into mindset. So one of the fun things that we get to support people with, me being a coach and her being kind of the brand strategist and coach for our marketing agency, is helping people overcome mindset challenges, specifically as it pertains to building your own brand and putting yourself out there. So as we get this thing going, if you can go into the comments and chat, let us know that you can hear us. And as always, please let us know where you're tuning in from. So I'm in Boise, Idaho. Alexis is in
Santa Cruz, California.
California. So go in the chat, let us know where you're at. Let us know that you can hear us as we get this thing going. We're going to dive in and provide, basically, I think we came up with 7 different shifts for you guys to work through. So before we get into the meat and potatoes, Alexis, anything that you want to share?
I feel like when we were thinking about today's topic, this is something that comes up all the time. This is so common, but people, I think, feel that they're the only one that feels these things, but they don't understand that everybody feels these things. So I feel like we felt really compelled to talk about these things, but not just bring them to awareness, but really offer some mindset shifts so you can work on becoming more successful, because these mental roadblocks are the things that can really hold everybody up. And we see it time and time again. So I'm excited to be talking about them with everybody.
Yeah. So if you guys can hear us, give us a like, thumbs up, go in the chat. Let us know where you're calling in from. That'd be great. Thank you, Juan from St. Cloud, Florida. Welcome to the show here. If you are the individual in your organization that is in charge of generating new business, then you really have no choice in 2024 but to build a brand for your company and really put yourself out there. So if you're an independent recruiter or boutique agency owner, and a lot of your, responsibility for the company is putting yourself out there, and you're held back by some different fears that we're going to tap into today, this is where you're going to find a ton of value. So as we're interacting and sharing some of this stuff, go in the comments when you're comfortable, and just share so people can see kind of some of your own challenges, right? So we're going to ask you to step outside of your comfort zone a little bit and interact as just kind of some practice with this. So Alexis, what is the first kind of limiting belief that you want to tap into today?
It's the most common. And I don't think that people talk about this one as much, but I know it's the most common. And it's the limiting belief is I'm too conscious about my appearance and being exposed. Becoming the face of your brand can be daunting. And this is what Donnie's and I recommend, is becoming the face of your brand to really build that human connection. It can be daunting though, because we're worried about how people will perceive us and judge us. And we're worried about the way we look. We're worried about being too old. We're worried about being not old enough. People say they have a face for radio, not a face for video. And, all of these insecurities, they're insecurities. All of these insecurities about our appearance, about putting ourselves out there, can really lead to a lot of anxiety. And ultimately, I think it's the biggest roadblock to building a personal brand. So Donnie, what are some of the mindset shifts that people can make if this is one of the things that they're concerned about?
Yeah, well, I think you hit it with it. Like, if you just recognize that what you're actually experiencing is an insecurity. And so I think the biggest thing first is like just being okay that we're all insecure and we all have insecurities. I think actually helps let go of that. Sometimes we're fighting against our insecurities. It magnifies it more. But I think this is actually, once you kind of let it go, then you can actually use this. And the shift is actually to embrace vulnerability as a strength, right? And so what you are judging yourself about oftentimes is what your audience is going to, attach to, so to speak, right? So recognize though that really being open and genuine resonates more with your audience than like just being flawless, right? Because authenticity is what really builds deep connection and trust with your audience. And a lot of times I think when people, especially in the content world, forget that element, that the goal of content is actually to build a relationship and foster deep connections with people. So the shift is actually just to step in and embrace your imperfections, embrace your vulnerability, because that's what people are going to find makes you truly you and authentic. And what you'll find is eventually those things become, strengths for you. So that's the shift. Let's dig into the next one, Alexis.
So the next one is I'm worried about imposter syndrome, which we talk about all the time nowadays, but let's dive into this like a little bit more specifically. So this is really feeling like you're not truly qualified or you don't deserve to speak on a particular topic or to a certain audience. You doubt your achievements, you doubt your experience. You're oftentimes worried about how your peers or your competitors will perceive you. You may not feel like a subject matter expert in your niche. While you may feel like a great recruiter, maybe you don't feel like, industry news or things that are going on are things that you feel as well versed to speak about. And ultimately, it's really a fear of being perceived as a fraud. So this can be incredibly debilitating when it comes to specifically the content that you're going to create to position yourself. So what are some of the shifts that people can work on if they're struggling with with imposter syndrome?
Yeah, well, this one really hits home for me because when I first came into this industry, I wasn't a recruiter, and that was the thing that everybody loved to attack, right? And so it kind of made me feel this imposter syndrome, even though I had helped plenty of recruiters do marketing and build brands and build the systems of what I did. But I battled with that, and a lot of that was just me allowing other people's opinion to come into play, early on. And so, to overcome imposter syndrome, one of the things that helped me is understanding that I don't need to know everything. Being an expert isn't about knowing everything. It's really about being committed to continual learning and sharing your journey, right? And so the real thing is really just staying committed to a growth mindset is going to be the biggest thing to help you overcome, your imposter syndrome, right? And then also, yeah, it's like you have to have something tangible, right? So, when we're talking about brand building, we're assuming that there's a business and a brand and something you have that is already built that you can build a brand off of. You don't just build a brand out of thin air, right? And so, but oftentimes when we have that growth mindset, that allows us to kind of take the pressure off of having to know everything, and especially for recruiters is like, well, if you're in recruiting and tech, well, you don't need to become a tech expert. You just need to become the expert in recruiting technical individuals. It's different, right? And so that's where a lot of recruiters actually, I think, kind of discount their knowledge, their expertise. Is there's a lot of things that they do really, really well that they feel should be second nature to everybody. So just a reminder that like everybody starts somewhere, and your unique perspective is what your audience is out after, and that's what they find valuable. Mm-hmm. So I think those first two kind of go hand in hand. Anything that you want to add on any of those, Alexis? You want to get into the third?
No, let's get into the third because I'm excited to talk about this one because I think that this one can be gridlock for your brand. And that is, I'm a perfectionist. So, you have the desire to present everything perfectly on camera. You want to be perfect. You need your captions to be perfect. You want the way you sound to be perfect, the way you look, your background, like everything. And this can turn, what can happen is that perfectionism can turn on other people that are like supporting you in the process or guiding. But at the root of it is really self-criticism. And we know that about perfectionism because we want the self to be perceived as perfect. But I mean, this is really excessive self-critique. And ultimately, what happens is that becomes the biggest gridlock, the biggest stall to building your brand because you use those errors or those issues as an excuse to not do it. And you can pin it at everybody else. You can pin it on the technology, on everything. But ultimately, it's that fear of not being perceived as perfect.
Yeah. And so the mindset shift here is actually, I think, a pretty basic one. And that's to prioritize progress over perfection. So another way to put it is simply stay in action, right? Because it's through action that we learn. And when we're sitting and analyzing how we can become perfected, we actually never get that chance because the only way we get to something to be perfect, which doesn't exist. But if you want to continue to play this game, the only way you're going to get there is through action, right? So if you prioritize progress over perfection and recognize that making mistakes is just a part of learning and growth, that's a big place to help you keep moving forward, right? Each video, each content piece is a step forward, and perfection is just, it's unrealistic. And it's going to hinder your productivity, your creativity. You're going to self-judge, just like Alexis said. And so one of the things that we, two mindset things that we're constantly talking about, with our clients is progress over perfection. But also it's another one, which is you got to be a great tester. Great business developers, great marketers are great testers. And the only way that I can test is through action. I can't test through thought. So nobody's testing anything, thinking through things. And so that's where, hey, does this video work? Well, the only way I'm going to know is if I put it out there imperfectly, so I can see what my audience likes from this. And I can't tell you how many times from personal experience with coaching people, Jessica Shuttleworth is actually one that I think of right now. When they first rolled out their first video to me, kind of comes to mind. And I gave them feedback on the video, and the video was very solid. And they were like, "Oh, well, we want to go make the adjustments and edits." And I'm like, no. Just put that one out imperfectly. In the next video you do, take the feedback that I gave you and apply it. And they put that imperfect video out, and they ended up winning business from an imperfect video. Now, had they not done that, they wouldn't have had the revenue, and they wouldn't have learned how they wanted to, improve moving forward. So having that progress, not perfection, always taking the next step in action, is critically important. So I'd be curious, for those of you that are with us live right now, go in the comments, with these first three things that we talked about, just share which kind of resonates with you. Are you, do you feel like you're a perfectionist? Do you, are you conscious about, fear of putting yourself out there and your appearance and things like that, or a little bit of imposter syndrome? I'd be curious if we're on track here with where we're going, with all this, because those are the three of the most common things we see. But let's get into the next one here, Alexis.
Yeah. The next one's understandable, is I'm overwhelmed by the tech part of it. So we're talking about camera equipment, lighting. Is my lighting right? What do I use for sound? Do I edit my videos? Do I add captions? Do I add B-roll? Do I just put them out as they are? Do I use Zoom, Loom? I mean, all of the things, right? That can be overwhelming to know. But the problem is that when we use this as a barrier to even attempt to get started, especially if you're not tech savvy, it can become the biggest thing that gets in the way of you even thinking or about creating video or becoming the face of your brand.
Yeah. And really quick, thank you, Tanya, for the comments. Tanya said she's a perfectionist. So been there. Thank you for that. So on the tech thing, I don't know if it's much as a mindset shift as much as, take one step at a time. So Alexis just kind of rattled off a lot of the things that you'd have to consider with tech. Like, what camera do I use? What mic do I use? Do I use lighting or not? Can I do it off of my cell phone or not? Should I use this, fancy editing software? Mm-hmm. Should I do my captions, or should I just upload the captions into LinkedIn? And so really the thing is the best thing you could do is, and this is more if you're going to try to do this on your own. Okay. The simple solution is like, well, I'll just find somebody to do that for me. There's your mindset shift, is start to think about outsourcing. Right. But if you're going to do this on your own, then it kind of goes back into the same kind of concept of progress, not perfection, which is, what is the one thing that you want to add to it this week? So for example, if you've never recorded a video, then pick up your cell phone, record it, and post it, and just be good with that. Then the next time you might pick up your cell phone, and you might be a little bit more intentional about where you're recording that video. And then the next time you might say, okay, I'm going to record the video. I know where I'm recording the video, and now I'm going to add this software to the mix. And if you're always just taking it one step at a time, learning each little, tech or little thing that you have, that's what I'd recommend to keep you moving forward. But when you start to try to do it all at once, then what happens is we become it's demoralizing, because as soon as the tech doesn't work, then we're like, hands up, forget it, I'm not doing this anymore. And then we're starting back over. Right. But if you take it one step at a time, confidence is built when we learn, and we do. Right. And so each time you develop a new skill, you learn a new thing, you're going to become more confident, and your content will improve along the way. So that's how you can kind of overcome some of your tech overwhelm. Let's get into the next mindset shift here.
The next one is, it's hard to be consistent, and allowing that as a roadblock to not doing, right? So consistent branding and posting content regularly requires a lot of discipline, because it's hard to balance your professional life, your personal life, and create content consistently. And so the idea of like, well, I don't know if I have time to be consistent, becomes the block to create content and become the face of your brand. So what's a shift that people can do for that consistency piece?
Well, there's a couple things here specifically as we're talking, if we're talking about the recruiting industry, is valuing your content as much as you would your candidate calls. So, for example, if you had an open rec on your desk right now, that you're going to make and do whatever's necessary. And everybody that's listening here has a different process of how you go, attract that candidate, get them on the phone. But the point I'm making is like, it's a non-negotiable for you. You're not going to wake up in the morning and be like, well, yeah, I just don't feel like calling today. It's like, no, you're going to do whatever is necessary because that's what your job is. That's how you're going to make money. And so I think that's how recruiters need to shift for 2024, is like, content is no longer something that's optional. And especially if we start with, go back to what we started, the show with today, which is if you are the leader of the organization, if you are the one that's in charge of building the business, growing the brand, then you have to overcome these hurdles to put yourself out there. And you need to view content creation as a professional commitment to yourself and your audience. Mm-hmm. And it's something that has got to happen to your business. Almost every other industry outside of recruiting, marketing is like such a massive part of it. And for whatever reason, in some recruiting businesses still, they view content creation, marketing, and things like that as being an optional thing, but it's not. So if you set realistic goals and create a structured schedule, and you really go all in on content, it's not an option. This is a commitment to yourself. This is a commitment to your audience. This is a commitment to your business. This is what, these are the types of habits that will really build and enhance that consistency, right? Because you're in action, and really build discipline. So that's how you can be more consistent, is by setting those realistic goals and really viewing this isn't an option anymore. You're all in on this.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I think that's a great solution for that. The second to last one we have is, I'm worried about handling criticism and rejection. I think this can be said for all humans. No one likes to be criticized. No one wants to be rejected. And when you put yourself out there, you are opening up yourself to potential criticism and rejection, which is really hard to accept. You are getting out of your safe zone, and people do not want to get out of their safe zone. Nobody wants to feel that sting of negativity, because we are humans and we want to be accepted and liked. And I mean, you literally are, when you create content, are stepping out into a new world that can be very intimidating, because we are worried about that criticism and that rejection. So what do you say to people to all humans that have that fear?
Yeah, well, I think this one's deep. I think this one's really deep, and I'll try not to get too deep on it. But really, if you were to break it down, like, why are you afraid of rejection, is lack of self-love. And so if you can get to the place of like being okay, because that's a big part of this journey, is like all of these things kind of added together, right? You feel like an imposter, you feel like you don't have value, you feel like this, that, or the other. So all of this kind of comes back into like seeing yourself and being okay with your imperfect self. And so when I'm in that place of self-love, then that gives me the opportunity to actually see this criticism as feedback. Mm-hmm. And then that allows me I can see that feedback, because usually what happens is we post something and then somebody responds, and then our ego becomes involved, our insecurity becomes involved. And then we take that as a personal attack. Yeah. And sometimes it might be, okay. But like, the position of power is to just let whoever's doing the attacking, so to speak, do the attacking. And then we're actually just going to get curious. Like, well, I'm going to use this constructive criticism as a place for growth. Okay. I'm going to learn to filter that feedback, and retain helpful insights. But if I can come from a place where like, I'm okay with myself, I'm good, then I can actually see what the feedback is, if somebody's actually providing something constructive, for me, to actually improve and to get better. A couple of weeks ago, somebody was listening to me on one of these shows, and I was interviewing somebody live, And the person I was interviewing live had one of these nice little fancy mics here, that I now have in my studios this year. I've been bragging about this thing for a couple of weeks now. But, somebody sent me a direct message after the fact and was like, hey man, like your guest has better audio than you. So I could have been like, oh, the hell with this guy and this, that, and the other. That could have been easy for me, but it's like, all right, cool. Like I appreciate the criticism. I appreciate the feedback. Essentially, I bought a mic the next day. Okay. So these types of things are all going to kind of come up. And so the big thing here, and this is what I do, is when it comes to people that are really, really negative. Okay. So everything I just shared is more from the standpoint of like somebody who's leaving a nice, thoughtful set of feedback and constructive criticism. But let's be honest, there's assholes out there, right? And so this kind of comes into two things for me. I know where I'm coming from. I'm doing this training. If you don't like this training and you would want to come in here and try to rip me because you don't find value in this training, I don't care. I know where I'm coming from. I'm coming from a place of goodwill. I'm trying to help people. And so I could give two shits if you don't like this or not. I want you to, right? But like from a place, like that's not what this is about. I'm not trying to be liked. I'm trying to add value. And I know where I'm coming from. I'm trying to add goodwill to the marketplace with these things that have helped other people. Mm-hmm. This one though, this next little shift is really, really powerful, is who gets a vote, right? So who gets a vote in your mind? Who actually gets a vote of criticism? And so, I'll say this the way that I think is the people that get a vote in my life are the people that live under the roof of my house. So my family, the people that I'm living with, they get a vote, meaning that when they give me feedback, whether it's constructive criticism or just criticism, I listen. Who doesn't get a vote? Okay. My clients get a vote. They're paying people. They're part of my world. I want their feedback. But people on the sidelines that aren't playing the game with me, they don't get a vote. And what I mean by that is I'm not going to take your personal attacks against me personally. You don't get a vote in my life. You don't get the power to allow your negativity to come into my world. Okay. So that's one of the ways that I handle like those real assholes that are out there, is you just don't get a vote. I don't care. Now if I have a paying client that comes on and they're like, hey, I don't like the way this happened, this, that, and I'm all ears. I want to listen. But if you're on the sidelines, this is not the way I'm going to work. I don't want to, if not, I can find criticism in everything. So, that's how I really handle the criticism there. I know that was a long-winded answer, but that's really some of the things that have been helpful for me over the years.
I feel like we could have done a whole episode on this one, and maybe we will in the future. Yeah. But something that came up that you said that I think is so important is, are you building your brand because you want to be liked, which plays into your ego? That's an ego brand. Or right. Are you building a brand because you want to add value, which is a service-oriented brand? Right. So different, because you're always going to get stuck in the stuff that the mindsets that we're talking about, if you're doing it for your ego and you want to be liked and praised and esteemed. And I'm not saying that you can't have those things with building your brand, but if that's at the root of why you're building a brand, so different. And this is one of the biggest hangups that people have with building a brand, because they think it's like too direct of the selling, right? And this is what we work with our clients on, is how can you serve more? How can you give more, right? And your brand becomes so different when you come at it from that mindset. So I just had to add that before I share our last one, which is I don't think I'm unique and I don't know my brand voice. So people feel this need to be different or to have something unique or flashy to stand out. And they feel like my real self may not be good enough or different enough for people to perceive me in the way that I want. And so I need to have this thing that differentiates me. And so it limits them, because they just feel like, what do I have to say? Who do I have to be that hasn't already been? So what would you say to this final one?
Yeah, your authenticity is what will distinguish you in a crowded space.
Yep.
I mean, that's the biggest thing, is authenticity is not something that you don't be authentic. Authenticity is something that you are authentic. So I don't come in here and be like, how can I be authentic today? It's like, I just come in here and I am authentic. Right. And that's what makes me unique. And that's what's going to make you unique. So trust that your experiences and insights are your greatest assets, your stories, your insights, the way you would say them. Don't try to emulate others. One of the things that, like, when I get into weird pockets in my business is usually when my lens is focused on what other things are going on and other filters instead. But when I'm focused on what I feel and what I'm passionate about, and I let my genuine interests and thoughts and guide me, that's when I get really, really powerful stuff, you know. And Alexis asks our clients these questions. And the reason we ask our clients these questions is to get passionate, genuine, you know, insights to help our clients give that back to their audience. So it's like, how can you lead your market today? How can you, like, seriously, like, how can you lead your market? And think about that. Like, don't just be like, oh, okay, I want to create content and check the list, but no, like, I want to lead my market today. How can I? What is the message my market wants to hear? And when I'm doing that and I'm trusting my intuition and my gut, that's when the content is usually best. How can I serve people today? Like Alexis has mentioned, you know, how can I come from a place of service? You know, how can I connect with my market? What are some of the things that I can do that will actually build people, you know, make them closer to me and build relationship with me and connect with me through my content? These are 3 questions that we always are asking our clients to have them kind of consider, because again, is when I can answer that question, then I can give a passionate, you know, response from that. But the big thing here is like, we hear a lot of like, oh, well, I don't like how this recruiter did that, or I don't like how this person did that. Then that's just more evidence that you need to go on yourself. That's more evidence that you get to control your brand narrative. That's more evidence that you need to get yourself out there and share your message. So if you're watching a bunch of other recruiters and or other people online and you're just cringing, then rather than folding up and being like, oh, I don't want to be viewed as that person, like, double down, play on your edge, and go show that person how they should show up, right? And that's the big thing, is like, when you're playing on your edge, when I'm playing on my edge, speaking from my experience, when I'm playing on my edge, when I'm playing from a place of passion, when I'm playing from a place of true leadership, that's when my stuff is always received the best. And so that's the thing for you guys, is like, when you wake up in the morning is your differentiator. That is your brand voice. Step into who you are, and then all these other things become better. I wasn't able to confidently get on a camera, talk, you know, boldly on a camera like I am right now a couple years ago. It takes time, repetition. Now there's somebody that can do that in a month. Everybody's different in journey. But the thing is when you're looking outside, that's what's going to kill your brand voice. And when you're looking inside, internally, that's what's going to make your brand voice really stand out in the marketplace. So as we just kind of went through those kind of challenges and shifts, just to kind of remind you guys, we talked about, you know, the fear of appearance and putting yourself out there, your imposter syndrome, perfectionism, you know, overwhelmed by tech, consistency, and it's hard to do that. Criticism, what happens if I put stuff out there and I'm criticized? And then, you know, I don't think I'm unique and I'm my brand voice. Go in the comments. Which one of those is specifically, do you think, holding you back? Be curious from that.
Or are there any that we haven't mentioned that people are feeling that we didn't address?
Exactly. Did we not mention anything that we could help tackle for you? And did any of those shifts, do you find those helpful for you guys? Nick had a good comment here. Branding to the right audience. Yeah, Nick, that's something that we talk about, you know, all the time in general in our thing. And that will definitely help with the imposter syndrome, right? Is if you know that you're speaking to the right audience where you truly have the opportunity to become the authority. But yeah, that's one of the biggest elements of content creation is having a strategic way to build an audience that will support the growth of that. So Tanya, appreciate the comment. Nick, appreciate the comment. Anybody else have any thoughts or feedback on this? We would appreciate it. If you guys are still with us right now and, you know, you have not started your journey of creating content, then Alexis and I can support you. Whether it's through my coaching program and you want to learn how to do this yourself, or if you want to work with us in Aura Marketing and have us outsource the complete creation of your brand and content, one of the biggest things that sets us apart is our ability to help you with your mindset, our ability to help you overcome these objections, strengthen your muscle, strengthen who you are. So yeah, like, we create killer content. Our clients win with revenue. But I think probably one of the biggest things that we don't talk about, and one of the biggest things I know that we're most proud about, is how we can watch individuals step into a new version of themselves and transform themselves, because that transformation doesn't just impact them. It impacts their family. It impacts their loved ones, their entire team, because they're being bold. They're putting themselves out there. And what can come from this is a massive, massive change in terms of, again, your confidence, and also the way your brand is viewed, the opportunities that are created for you, and most importantly, the revenue. my business is all built off of branding and trainings and things like this, and so are my clients. And I've helped recruiters with their content and overcome these challenges, add an additional high 6 figures, even 7 figures to their business. So that's the opportunity that's out there for those of you that are here maybe watching but haven't played all out with your content yet. So if that's something you want to explore, send me a direct message, send Alexis a direct message, comment below that you're interested, and we'll reach out. We'll just start with a simple call. We'll walk through, our methodology and system. We'll share exactly how it will apply with your business. We'll share some of the amazing results that we've delivered for recruiters, including doubling revenue, quadrupling impressions on their LinkedIn profile. The list goes on and on. So the success that our clients are seeing are just insane. So whether you're an independent recruiter or if you run a boutique agency and you want to empower and leverage the desks that are working at your agency and build brands around those individuals too, because we're helping recruiting teams do that. The most forward-thinking recruiting teams are, leveraging the recruiting desk. Send us that direct message. There's literally no risk at doing this right now. And we've got a very proven system right now that is working and helping people win, because at the end of the day, where does content come into play? When you're in a down economy like this, I don't know what industry you're in, but I think the writing's on the wall, at least from my perspective of speaking with a lot of recruiters. It's certainly not where it was a year and a half ago, where you kind of just needed to be in business in order to get job orders. A lot of people are losing legacy clients. A lot of people are losing, just the same approach that they had wasn't working. And so if you're in a place where you're getting consistent rejections, that's because you've positioned yourself as being a recruiter. And the whole purpose of content and the whole purpose of our methodologies and our system is to position you as being the recruiter. And when there's less job orders and less work to go around, the recruiter wins. And if you want to win, send us a direct message. So thank you for being here with us today. We'll be back next week with another live episode. It'll be myself and Bryn Orsuga. Some of you have been waiting for that one, so we got some exciting announcements for that. Alexis, any closing thoughts for you?
The one thing I'll say too, I'll put it in the comments, is I just finished this week creating a content creation guide for people that want to start creating content on their own, but they're stuck on how. So I will drop that in the comments if anybody wants it. It's a free guide, and it's basically how to use our framework to create your content. So I will add that into the comments.
Excellent. Well, have a great week, everyone. We really appreciate you showing up, hanging out with us. If you enjoyed today's training, go drop something in the comments. We would appreciate that. That exposes it to more people. At least tap that like button, maybe that insightful button, maybe a heart button or love button. But next week we'll be back, and you can see this on my YouTube channel. It's always there, and it's also on Spotify, Apple, Google, all those other podcast channels. It'll be up later on today. We'll talk to y'all soon.
Have a great